Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The 100. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's focus on the Josephine and Bellamy situation. I do like the fact is that, Josephine is trying to reach that part of Bellamy, because obviously Bellamy's like, oh, I'm doing all this because, when the times happen, we buckle down and we save and fight for our friends no matter what it takes, especially when they're in danger. But it's like, oh, your other friends are in danger, you're just going to leave them behind to save Clark. So it's like, oh, I guess it shows how important she is compared to everyone else, trying to get inside of his head, because Josephine's very good at that. But obviously Bellamy doesn't listen, and they get captured by the children of Gabriel, and it leads to some interesting conversations, I think, because it's like, because explain, it's like, okay, because for one, Josephine now knows, oh, Gabriel's actually still alive, because they're trying to contact him. If they weren't contacting him, that would mean that they would know he's dead. I mean, to be fair, in their case, they don't know for sure that he's alive. They're kind of only hopeful that he's alive. But once again, which is interesting, because technically, as he explained, but previously, he did technically die. But nevertheless, and you see it kind of affect her, because I think, no matter what, because there was a part of her that was kind of like, oh, he's probably dead. She kind of just accepted it. But I think maybe on some level there was a small part of her that was hoping that he's alive, because they had a very complicated relationship. It's like, yeah, I've loved him for the past 235 years or something like that, except past 70 years he's been trying to kill me. So relationships. And it's so interesting, and it's like, okay, she ends up figuring out, okay, Clark's contacted you through Morse code. It's like, okay, yeah, she can hear everything we're doing and saying, so just say whatever you got to say. And Bellamy's like, I promise I won't let you die. And you see Josephine kind of look off. I think that him saying that actually kind of surprised her, because despite everything Clark's done, because she talks about Clark doing all this genocide and stuff, no matter how much terrible stuff Clark's done, Bellamy is right here. Even despite her putting him in the pit last season, he is still fighting to save her, because he's not willing to, because even given the others, despite what Clark's done, even the others were willing to help save her. And I think that speaks volumes. And I think maybe even Josephine's a little envious of that. That's what I took, with that look in her eyes, almost kind of like, wow, we're going to fight for her despite everything she's done. Which Josephine can't say the same thing, because it's like, despite what she's done, Gabriel still wants to kill her. None the same. Granted, he has complicated feelings about the situation. Once again, it's like what you want and what you're most scared of. That old situation, getting closer to the anomaly, it showed you that. But it's so interesting to see that. And I think that kind of shows her the difference between her and Clark, because I think probably in her mind is no matter what people say about me, I'm looking to the future. The fact of the matter is, people might look at me as bad, but I'm not that bad. But Josephine can't honestly say that despite everything she's done, most people would be willing to fight for her. Obviously her parents, sure, other people, because she's a prime, so of course they're going to, and her parents are going to fight for her, but no one cares about her to that extent. The only other person outside of her family who would do something like that is Gabriel, but he wouldn't. He'd try and kill her. Once again, complicated relationship, because he does care about her, but I think for her, she probably doesn't see it that way. She probably sees it as oh, he 100% hates me. So I just thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Then there's the whole conversation about the fact is, because Bellamy's still hopeful about the whole situation. It's no. When it's all said and done, we'll win. I'll get Clark back, and then we'll bargain your dad for peace using your mind drive as a bargaining chip. But it's it's not going to work out like that. You're so optimistic to the point it's just actually now your optimism is actually kind of getting annoying now. Because for her, it's the fact of the matter is, you think your people will really be okay with hey, let's be A-okay with the people who snatch other people's bodies by killing them and taking over their bodies. So the whole body snatcher thing isn't really all that, digestible, especially on the premise of peace and stuff like that. So that's her mind. But she's also saying there's 1,000 different ways things could go wrong. But, the children of Gabriel end up finding out that she is, a prime, and they try to kill her. But in that moment, she switches over to Clark, because even as smart as Josephine is, I guess she's not combat ready. So Clark has been in plenty of fights, so she ends up taking everyone down, and Bellamy tells her to run, but Bellamy, she ends up leaving him with the key so he can escape at any time. But I do like that it's hey, I'm here. It's because Josephine and Clark, the wall between their minds is thinning out. So now it's like their minds are kind of coexisting at a time, meaning it's closer and closer to like things kind of getting crappy. And I love Josephine being like, "Hey, come on, just let's do this." The fact of the matter is, like, I could save our lives. It's like, okay, you need to switch back to me so we can ride this bike. But Clark turns on the bike and it's like, okay, because Josephine had been pulling from her memories and knows everything she knows, but now, and took like bits of knowledge and stuff like that. But now, Clark did the same to her and took the knowledge of how to ride a bike. And it's like, smart of you. And it's like, sucks, doesn't it? And then Clark rides off on the bike. She's contacting Gabriel, letting him know the situation, which, let's take this as an opportunity to jump to Gabriel's situation. With the whole Octavia thing, he brings up some interesting things I didn't even notice or pay attention to last episode. Like, the fact is, her hair is like clean, like it's been washed. He also notes it's like, your hair's a little bit longer, so you weren't just in there a couple seconds. I mean, to be fair, it's a time anomaly, so no telling how long she's been in there. I'd assume maybe like months or something, but who's to say her hair didn't grow longer, she got it cut, and then it grew eventually. Like, who knows how long. Like, that's why I brought it up last episode. I'm sure, like, the next time we see Diosa, she's either going to be older, and then, like, her child, which, potentially a little girl, Hope, is going to be like either a teenager too, kind of doing the whole Jordan thing, which that might be something they might be setting up of like, hey, Jordan and his new love, who's like Diosa's kid, and it's like, which that'd be interesting because it'd be like, whoa, like your kid lived inside of the time anomaly. Maybe that would even make your child special because your child was born in the time anomaly, and like that time energy gets viewed into your child in some shape or form. Once again, that comes down to whether or not, it depends on how long she's in there, because she might be in there long enough for her child to come out. Like she just, like I said, as she saw in her head, like her little girl Hope will just be like a little girl. Maybe she'll be a full-blown teenager, maybe she'll be a full-blown adult. It's gonna be interesting to see. But then the question becomes, why was Octavia let out but Diosa wasn't? So it might be a thing of kind of like, it almost seems like there's a destiny type of situation, like the anomaly calls to you because it needs to get something across, but Octavia doesn't remember her time in there, so you have Gabriel trying to push her mind to remember, and it ends up kind of being more of a therapeutic episode for Octavia because it's about her facing her inner demons. It wasn't even about because I guess what was in the green box she didn't choose was everything related to the anomaly. What she chose in the red box was more so figuring out the Blood Reina thing. She's in a pit, and then all these different memories come flooding back of kind of stuff she's kind of torturing herself about, like killing Pike the way she did, the whole thing of cannibalism, killing people, forcing them into cannibalism. Everything she did is Blood Reina. Everything she did leading up to becoming Blood Reina. The whole Jaha thing of like, oh yeah, like try to get who you need to become for one crew. And she's being tortured by it, and then lo and behold, who's the one person that shows up? I was like, who's it going to be? I figured it was. I was like, oh, it's going to be either Bellamy or Blood Rain or something. It's like, no, Pike. Didn't see that coming. But for Pike, it's like, I was the beginning of the end, essentially, for you to get to where you are. It just takes one thing, and just like, basically the past influences the future, so your actions and what you do ends up influencing who you are later. But killing Pike in cold blood, no matter how much he deserved it for killing Lincoln, but the fact is you did that kind of fed the darkness in you, and that darkness kept you alive for so long, because that darkness, you fed on that when even in the when in the arc, when you always have to hide under the floor, like the darkness was kind of something comfortable to you because of that, and that darkness is something you had to relish in for those dark years, to be Blood Reina, to survive, to keep all those people alive. But it's like, look at all the terrible things you've done, because you're up here. What do you want more so than anything? You want forgiveness is what you want, because everyone you care about hates you. Even your own brother doesn't love you. And how does that feel? Does it feel good? But for her, it's also like, but it's like, forgiveness is just for like minor things. What you've done is going beyond that, because not only did you burn the farm that Monty was trying to grow so you could use the algae when you were presented another way, when you killed people to force other people into cannibalism, eating their friends, when you took people into that gorge, you got 400 people killed, even though there was another way, but you were just not willing to let go of that whole Blood Reina thing, and then even to the whole point, like technically the world getting destroyed was on you because you couldn't let go of wanting to get to that valley, and the world ended up getting destroyed because yes, that was more McCreary, but still that was kind of on you. You played your own part in that. Once again, because she swallowed herself in that darkness, and she wanted, once again, wanted to be forgiven, but it's like it's not just about forgiveness at this point. She wants redemption. But even Pike's like, well, what about me? I was literally in the middle of my redemption arc when you stabbed and killed me in cold blood. So it's like kind of like, do you really deserve it? It's not, because it's not even about what you deserve. You've been presented this opportunity, so what are you going to do about it? And then obviously she has to confront Blood Reina. And I like how the parallels they did, because it's like, okay, here's Blood Reina about to execute Pike, and it's like Pike is giving the same speech that Lincoln gave the day Pike was about to execute him. And that was a situation of, what are you going to do? Who are you going to be? And that's been her difficulty, because for her, it's like, because it's not just other people that hate her. She hates herself. She hates who she's become. But for her, it's just, how do I, once again, like we saw it in like episode 2, she wanted people to get pissed and beat her up and kill her because she legitimately couldn't live with what she had done. I mean, that's ultimately the whole Valley situation. We'd already sacrificed so much to continue things the way they are. So it's like, we have to get that Valley, or it makes everything we've done mute. That's kind of her whole thing now. It's like, we lost Earth, we lost everything, and like basically everything I did as Blood Reina meant nothing now. I became this person, I did all those terrible things for nothing. So many people died, so many people were hurt, and that's a lot to kind of carry on your conscience, and that's why she kind of hates herself. But this presents her an opportunity to change everything, her fighting and defeating her darkness. I thought that was pretty neat. And when it was all time, like she was, getting up, because it's like, I'm sorry I didn't help you about the whole anomaly thing, because she didn't access those memories. Probably deep dive into, do that same thing again. She chooses the green box because the red box might not be there anymore, because she dealt with her like psychological, well, more psychological than emotional shit. She kind of dealt with that this episode. So I'm sure the other green box would be everything anomaly related, which I'm so interested to find out what the hell that's all about. I mean, will that have I mean, did it give them peeks into the future? I mean, you would assume, because it deals with time and stuff like that, because obviously things are kind of affecting. But once again, it's like, what was Octavia running from? Are we going to deal with like a time monster type of situation? Did they see what the future of this world holds? And is Octavia being like, oh, I got to get away and get back and warn everyone, but she doesn't remember? Maybe it's a thing of like, she'll remember when the time comes. Like, everything happens for a reason. Like, once again, it almost feels like this whole anomaly thing is destiny. But right when she comes out and she's like, oh, I got to go help make things right because I've been given a second chance, they get Clark's message, and it's like, oh, I'd even love Gabriel being like, yeah, they'll be closing in here, and it's like, man, things are going to get weird. Because for him, it's like, not only are you about to meet Clark, you're about to meet the girl who's also got your ex-girlfriend inside her head, which, that once again, that wall between them is getting smaller and smaller, so it's like, what the hell do you do about that? It's going to be interesting to see what happens with all of this, going forward. But there's also still everything in space. Marcus, I love his whole situation, because it's like, for him, it's like, it's not just being in a new body. Everything that was him, those scars, the coalition mark on his arm, like, it was all kind of representative of his story, of who he was. Because every scar tells a story. And it's like, yes, you had the memory of them, but it's not etched on your body anymore. It doesn't have that impact because it's just a memory. At the very least, if you look down at a scar, like, it symbolizes so much, And for him, it's like, he just doesn't feel like himself. And, Abby telling, Josephine's mom, that's like, oh no, like, he'll get in line and stuff like that, because obviously this whole thing doesn't sit well with him, because Raven's like, oh, was it all worth it for Marcus? And for Marcus, it wasn't, because for him, it's like, Sarah, one of the women guarding Josephine's mom, that was Gavin's wife, and it's like, she has to look and see the sadness in her eyes when she looks at Gavin, and it's like, you knew this man, because it's like, for Marcus, he feels like, no, this man died so I can live, and that's not fair, and he questions their whole thing, because it's like, the fact of the matter is, people are under the belief that, like, oh, when these people make these sacrifices to themselves, oh, they go off and they're reunited with the Primes, they join with the Primes, kind of like, oh, this kind of almost like a heaven type of thing of like, oh yeah, you go to heaven and you're with God, that type of situation. But it's like, no, they just disappear. Everything and who they were is completely gone, and it's like, you're lying to these people, which upsets him a lot. But like I said, Abby's like, oh, no, he'll get in line and everything. But I think I think Abby could feel it too. The thing is, Marcus is the way he is. Like, when he feels like there's an injustice, he's going to stand up for it. He's going to fight it, and it's in his mind as an injustice. I really like they woke Indra. I'm like, yo, Indra, what up? It's like, dude, because let's not forget, there's still a shit ton of people still asleep that we haven't really tackled that. But it's like, I guess like this way you kind of break everything down into smaller groups that you can handle storyline wise, because you kind of get everyone wake up. You kind of like, well, what is everyone up to? There's that whole thing. So it's just kind of like focus on like the more main people, kind of like background characters. You can just like worry about that later to a certain extent. You get what I'm trying to say. So. But because I can count Indra as one of those like main characters too. But the whole conversation with Indra is interesting because she's like, well, how do we say they're not gods? It's like, you can't really believe that. It's like, well, the fact of the matter is I'm looking at my friend in a different body. So hell yeah, like that's a very miracle thing if you don't explain everything to them. Hell, look at the way they looked at the whole flame situation. That's a technology thing, the whole like commander position and all the different people passing down. It's like, that's a technology thing, but when you don't know it, like you worship it as this is part of your system. And that's kind of getting to what Indra was making a point of. It's like, can we really judge them for what they do? Yeah, they kill people and they worship gods to do things their way, but it's like, well, what do we do? Marcus, what about you? You literally floated people for nothing, for something as simple as just stealing food on an ark. Our whole system was getting kids to basically train, fight, and kill to basically rise up to become the commander. So it's like, we all kind of fuck up on the different points. So it's like, Marcus is like, yeah, we messed up, but it doesn't excuse how terrible their situation is. It's like, because the fact of the matter is people go along with this system because they believe these people are being taken advantage of, and that's not right. And so they come with the conclusion of like, we stop this by getting rid of Nightblood. We get rid of Nightblood, we make it so that it's impossible for them to make more and be able to do it and continue what they're doing. Because this whole Nightblood was kind of like the crux of their plan of going forward, because it meant like, because they were in a position where it's like, oh, we can't, we're kind of running out of, because a lot of people are being born nulls and stuff like that. So a Nightblood is like very, very, very rare amongst them. So it complicates things a lot more. So, but when the time comes, they're in that position where it's like, that whole situation is sad. It's like, Marcus had made up his mind. They didn't want her to see this because she'd already been through this situation before with her husband. She kind of put him in a position to be floated. So it's like, we don't want you to see someone else you care about floated, just bring back bad memories. And I love what they did, because I was thinking like, okay, this is gonna be interesting getting Marcus going forward. Like, it's no longer Henry isn't Cusick, it's Ian Cusick. Cusick. I feel like I say his last name wrong, because I think I always just think of it as like John Cusack, but it's not. I think it is just Cusick, not Cusack. Like, either way, semantics and stuff like that. But I thought like, oh man, I guess last episode was kind of our last episode with him, and going forward he's just played by Grayston Holt. I was like, oh, I guess that's just how it's going to work. It's like, no. And I did like symbolically what they did at the end, because for him it's like, I have to do this, and he looks like himself again as Marcus. And I thought that was kind of neat. I guess this is our way to kind of say goodbye to this long running character. And it's like, holy crap, dude. A lot of the original cast is dwindling down bit by bit, because like a lot of long-standing characters are gone now, so it's kind of crazy to think about that. But nevertheless, for him, it's like, we know this is wrong, Abby. Like, I get it. If I was in your position, I would do the exact same thing because I love you, because once again, go back to the example of going from season 4 to season 5. Abby didn't want to be saved, but Marcus made a decision of like, yeah, keep her as one of the 100 people from Sky Crew that can be saved. And so it's always that thing of like doing what they can to save each other because they love each other. But because, Marcus loves her, it's like the fact of the matter is eventually down the road, this will haunt you, because you do know that this is wrong. You feel you just don't want to accept it because it's me. But the fact of the matter is we have to do this. We have to do the right thing. We have to stop this here and now. This is how we get our humanity back. And it's like, you saved me so many times, and it's just like, oh. And she's like, I love you. And he's like, I love you too. And you see like Indra, because it's like, in a sense, it's like, yeah, that's her bestie. It's so interesting because that same parallel was made about Bellamy and Clark. Like, despite everything they've been through, it's like they had the complicated relationship of starting off as enemies, and then they became besties over the course of everything. And kind of similar to Indra and Marcus, because it's like you see how much is shaking up Indra, because like that's become a longtime friend now, an ally that she could always rely on with everything, and have to say goodbye like this, it's like, it sucked. And even telling Raven, like, the fact of the matter is, you've always known, because it's like, oh, we need you, Marcus, kind of to be their moral compass, but he's like, no, you don't. You know what's right and wrong. Like, Raven, you know what's right. And even telling Abby, you're stronger than me. You're so strong, you just don't realize how strong you are. And it's heartbreaking, and sacrificing himself, because for him, it's like, he can't live with himself knowing what he's done, but it's like, it would just perpetuate things over and over again. It's like, okay, it's Marcus now, but then it's someone else over. Like, we just be falling into the same line as them of like being, eventually you get to the point, once again, that whole conversation of kind of like the primes, that it becomes so second nature that it doesn't seem wrong to you. It's like, if we don't stop this now, nip that in the bud, we'll end up like them eventually down the road potentially, and we can't let that happen. So it's such a sad ending, but yeah, like I said, a beautiful ending for Marcus. I think to see his story kind of, I don't know, in a sense, almost come full circle in a certain regard, just to think about where he started out. Yeah, he was complicated because you kind of hated the way he operated, but he always did what he thought was kind of the best for people. And to see his change and growth over the course of the series to become the person he was, to become this respectable person who always does the right thing, at least always tries to, Yes, things got complicated last season, but even for him, it's like the devil versus, someone evil, McCreary versus the devil, Octavia / Blood Rain, and that whole complicated thing. But still, the sad thing is him and Octavia never really got a chance to apologize. And I think that's going to be something too, where it's like, that might be something that hits Octavia when the time comes, that she never got a chance to make things right between her and Marcus. So for her, it's probably going to be a situation of, I gotta, push even harder now to make, she'll probably make even more of an effort to fix things between her and Bellamy, because it's like, you never know what the circumstances might lead to, whereas like you might not have that chance anymore. So a very, very interesting episode. I'm very excited to see what the next episode has in store for us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till next time we meet, be happy, be safe, love life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.